What's up, moviegoers? Welcome to the Markio Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony. In this episode of the Markio Podcast, I'm talking about Wes Craven's New Nightmare, or A Nightmare on Elm Street 7, New Nightmare, or simply New Nightmare. The movie is directed and written by Wes Craven. It stars Robert Englund, Heather Langenkamp, and John Saxon. The movie's release date was October 14th, 1994, has a runtime of 112 minutes, the budget was $8 million, and the box office was $20 million. Now, even though this movie is the 7th installment in the franchise of A Nightmare on Elm Street film series, it is not part of the same continuity as the previous films. Instead, this movie portrays Freddy Krueger as a fictional movie villain who invades the real world and haunts the cast and crew involved in the making of the films about him. Freddy is basically depicted as closer as to what Wes Craven originally intended in the original movie, being much more menacing and less comical with an updated attire and appearance. Now, the film features various people from the first movie in the motion picture industry playing themselves, including Heather Langenkamp, who plays herself in this movie, who was compelled by the events in the narrative to reprise her role as Nancy Thompson. New Nightmare does feature several homages to the original film, such as quotes and recreations of the most famous scenes in that movie. Now, basically, Freddy Krueger's appearance in A New Nightmare, which you see with the hat and the gloves and the red and green sweater, was the original concept Wes Craven had for the character in the 1984 version. Written under the working title A Nightmare on Elm Street 7, The Ascension, Wes Craven set out to make a deliberately more cerebral film that recent entries to the franchise didn't have. Basically, the premise originated for this movie when Wes Craven first signed on to write The Dream Warriors, but New Line Cinema at the time rejected this version of the story and used a different one. And basically, in A New Nightmare, Freddy Krueger was portrayed closer to what Wes Craven had imagined. Very dark and less comical. Now, to reinforce this, the character's makeup and outfit were much more enhanced, with one of the most prominent differences being that he now wears a long blue-black trench coat. In addition, the signature glove was redesigned to be a more organic look, with the fingers resembling bones and having muscle textures in between them. Now, Robert Englund again plays the character of Freddy Krueger and is credited as himself in the end credits. Now, Robert Englund does reprise his role, as I said, as Freddy Krueger, and seeing him play himself was good. Seeing him come out of the makeup as Freddy Krueger in this was great, as they all try and figure out what Freddy Krueger is and how he can kill people. Now, the certain scenes in the movie had earthquake scenes, which was already written in the film at the beginning of the production of the filming, which took place during the 1994 earthquake that happened in Los Angeles. As such, the production team decided to incorporate real footage of earthquake structural damage into the film. Here's a big kicker and the thing about the Nightmare on Elm Street, A New Nightmare movie. Wes Craven had intended to ask Johnny Depp, whose feature film debut was in the first film, to make an appearance as himself, but was too timid to ask him because he became such a big star now. But later on, upon running into each other after the film's release, Johnny Depp said he would have been happy to do it for no to less money. Can you imagine if Wes Craven did ask Johnny Depp to reprise his role as Glenn from the first movie, and to play the character, and to play himself in this movie? Oh my God, imagine that. This movie would have probably been a little bit better, and this probably would have been marketed out as a Johnny Depp movie, you know? And people would have gone to see it, because I definitely would have gone to see it. I saw this movie many years later after it was released, and I actually loved it. Now, basically, this movie came out in 1994, and Wes Craven did that because it was basically the 10th anniversary of the Nightmare on Elm Street film series. There's a lot of great factors in this movie that really stand out a lot. Seeing the movie within a movie really worked. And seeing how Freddy Krueger was creepier, much more menacing. And there are different movie posters out there depicting Freddy Krueger. There's one where it just says Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and you see Freddy Krueger's eyes. That's it. And there's another one where you see Freddy Krueger standing over Heather Langenkamp and the character of her son in this movie in a darker poster. It's really good. It's really well done. And, you know, basically the tagline for this is, "This time staying awake won't save you." So when Wes Craven did return to A Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, it was good. He did return in the third one, and he wanted to close out the story, but he just couldn't because, of course, the studio had much more pull. But you definitely know Wes Craven had more pull with this one because he made the movie he wanted to make. And if you make the movie you want to make, it's going to be a hit. And after its release, this movie became a hit for what it was known for bringing in the realism of how Freddy Krueger is, who he is in the real world and such. And basically Freddy Krueger thinking that he's, this godlike figure that he, can do anything he wants. Now later on in an interview, Robert Englund stated that this is his favorite Nightmare movie. Robert Englund stated that, "I think it stands the test of time. It was a fun reunion with original cast members like Heather Langenkamp and John Saxon. Wes's script is clever and original, and the self-reference of the horror story." Now, Heather Langenkamp also is very supportive of the movie, saying, "I was really shocked that I was in the movie so much. I had totally forgotten I was the star of that movie, even in the original. It was interesting because all of my scenes are kind of alone, and I was acting against the tension of this idea of what Freddy was and how he was at the time. We all knew what I was afraid of and that Freddy might be back, but you never really saw Freddy that much. And I realized that the way this movie was made was amazing, about the way the relationship that Freddy has and the way Wes Craven created this character and the audience falls in love with it. It's a really interesting concept, and it's one of the only horror films where the monster's really in the background, at least until the end. But it's all about our mentality about fear," unquote, which is what Heather Langenkamp said. And it's very true about what she says about the movie. We don't really see Freddy Krueger a lot in this, only through manifestations of how he shows himself to different people. There's a scene where the character of Nancy, or Heather Langenkamp, has a son, and he's in this, so-called doctor's room, and Freddy comes up behind a nurse and kills the nurse. The only person to see the character Freddy Krueger is the child, but the nurse can't see him because she doesn't believe that it's real. So the whole dream, figment, imagination is different. The whole way of things working is different. And to say that the 7th movie in a franchise of film series is the best one is saying something. It really, really is. Because it took Wes Craven to come back to fix the problem that happened after the first movie. You could say that A Nightmare on Elm Street 1984, you could say that A Nightmare on Elm Street is the first movie. You skip everything from 2 through 6 and then add this movie, A New Nightmare, that closes out. That's it. That's the only 2 movies you need, and that's it. Wes Craven was an essential piece in horror history as a director. He created fantastic movies in the 70s, created the iconic character of Freddy Krueger, and left an indelible mark on how movies and horror movies are made. I mean, if you bring back Freddy Krueger today, Robert Englund, one more time, and you add Johnny Depp now, as big of an actor and character actor he is, having Johnny Depp's character Glenn go after Freddy Krueger, oh my God, you got $1 million hit right there. It could be the biggest horror movie of all time, which I would love to see. But Robert Englund has stated that the Freddy Krueger character has been retired, and he did return as Freddy Krueger in an episode of The Goldbergs on ABC during a Halloween special that happened in 2018 or 2019, I want to say, and it was funny. It was good to see, and Robert Englund did it for fun, and it was great. I really commend the creators and writers of The Goldbergs TV show for bringing Robert Englund back as Freddy Krueger, and, it was great. It was good to see. But for what this horror franchise is, it was different. Like I stated, the first one was great. We don't really get to see Freddy Krueger for who he is until the ending. In this movie, we don't see him at all until the very end. Even in his world and his realm, which is much more creepier and how it's depicted in the previous movies. Wes Craven went out with a bang. Wes Craven left a mark on this movie, and it shows. And it was a great, great way to end it. And especially of how things ended with the previous movies. So let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are on Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Do you think that this is what the franchise should have been after the first movie in 1984? And do you think that this is a cult classic hit? And do you think Wes Craven returning to the franchise really helped and saved it? Let me know in the comment section below about the questions I just asked. Now you're probably asking yourself, Anthony, what is your ranking of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies? Well, here they are. Number 1, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Number 2, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Number 3, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Number 4, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Number 5, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Number 6, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. And 7, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. So there you have it, my Nightmare on Elm Street discussion. Let me know where you rank your A Nightmare on Elm Street films. And is this one of your favorite horror franchises of all time? And let me know why. And be sure you click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell for new videos and new podcast episodes on the Markio Productions YouTube page. And follow Markio Productions on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And follow me, Anthony, your host, on Instagram and Twitter at Mr. Filmstock. And follow the Markio Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll leave a link to all the social media accounts in the description box below. You can check it out and follow along. All right, everyone, that does it for today's episode. I'm your host, Anthony. Thanks for tuning in.
Miss me?